Hello everyone, welcome to the channel of Qianmo. As we've discussed in the first video, the compliance work in business services sector in accounting firms is majorly composed of preparing for the year-end financial report and the preparation and lodgement of various taxes. They are the daily work for an accountant in the public practice up to the manager level. And how well they are performed accounts for almost 80% of your performance review as an accountant. In previous videos, we've conducted an overview as well as step-by-step introduction of the major knowledge blocks in the process of preparing for the financial reports. From now on, we will touch base on the most important concepts about taxation, which is the other major part of our daily work as an accountant. In this video, we will have an overview of Australian taxation system and the concept of tax reconciliation. Income tax was first imposed in Australia by the states, but due to the breakout of World War, to finance the Australians' role, income taxation was consolidated by the federal government. So nowadays, taxes are levied at two levels of authorities. Income tax, GST, fringe benefit tax are collected by the federal government, whereas payroll tax, stamp duty, land tax are collected by the state government, which means those taxes are controlled by 8 separate legislatures. Accordingly, the requirements, liabilities, and the rates of tax vary from state to state. We will focus on income tax in this video, as overall it is more complicated than other taxes. There are two principal acts dealing with income tax, which are Income Tax Assessment Act 1936, shortened for ITAA 36, and Income Tax Assessment Act 1997, shortened for ITAA 97. By the late 1980s, the ITAA 36 had become too complicated, so the ITAA 97 was rewritten and has replaced the substantial parts of the ITAA 36 and can be regarded as the principal act. It also is in an easier language than the 36. By rights, the legislation is supposed to express in a clear way, but given the complexity and dynamic nature of the modern economic like nowadays, it is not surprising that the precision is not that easy to achieve. Therefore, the federal government enacted an act which requires courts to interpret the tax legislation. So apart from the legislation, the court cases are a very important source for lawyers and tax accountants to analyze a tax position that the client is facing. The income tax system is administered by the Australian Taxation Office, the ATO. So we lodge our income tax to ATO. In general, income tax structure is in this way. First, identify the assessable income. Then deduct the deductible expense. Here comes to taxable income. Now apply the taxpayer's tax rate. Different taxpayer, for example, individuals, companies, trusts, superannuation, all have different tax rates. Now here comes the tax we shall pay, but we can also apply offset to the tax dollar amounts when eligible. Then we finally achieve the tax liability that the taxpayer incurs in this financial year. Now, the assessable income as well as deductible expenses are all tax concepts that are under provisions of the legislations. They are the income and expenses that is recognized by tax legislations for tax purposes. There are different concepts to accounting income and expenses. Therefore, we have such a step called tax reconciliation to adjust the accounting profit for the assessable income recognized, exempt income specified, and deductions allowed by the tax legislation. In that way, we arrive to the taxable income to finally calculate the tax liability and lodge to the ATO. Okay, that's all for today. Hope this video is helpful to you in having a rough understanding of the Australian taxation system. In the future videos, we will introduce more about the Australian tax. See you next time.